Okay.
Okay, so I had a call with them about the provenance accounting system, and I just like it makes sense. Everything you said is still just not. I guess I can't feel the bite of. Does it have to be a blockchain? Like I'm kind of like. I mean, if I was to build it, I'd build it on this blockchain just because it's easier to code that way. The value propositions that it offers aren't necessarily. Yeah, I don't. Maybe I'm just a bit fucking blind at the moment. But
you got to watch because there's a selection bias, all right? Because you've designed a hammer, and so you want nails that you can hit with that hammer. That's not necessarily the best way.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm getting at here. I'm getting at the fact I have a hammer, and I'm like, I don't think this hammer fits on that nail.
All right. Okay. All right.
And right, like I would use this hammer because I would find this hammer easy because it's the hammer in my hand.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, it doesn't have to be this hammer. There are some nails that only this hammer will hammer.
Yeah.
But that object accounting system might not be it. That's all. I'll have to think about it more. And Troy put forth some pretty good points and arguments for it. But I feel like I just want to see the sell sheet of that thing. We came up with a good name for it. Non-fungible accounting.
Which is a namespace cache with NFAs, non-fungible assets.
I know. It's fucking, yeah. I mean, given that we could literally make up any word, it's amazing how many times we collide.
The only no is namespace clash, because that is obviously going to be a thing. So one of them has to give. I'm still.
I actually, we haven't had our big sort of word showdown, but I think that NFAs should be called NFTs because I'm like, why fight it? Why fight it?
I agree, but also I'm still, and I've banged on about this a bit, and I haven't made a good enough argument. I'm still thinking that the object previously known as Wishes is actually a forward NFT or NFA and is inherently different.
You're right. No, you are right there. That's what it is.
Yeah. So we need that showdown pretty soon, but not right now.
But like it's totally okay to call something a different thing when it's in a different state. Like how you call a lamb, there's a lamb, a ewe, and mutton.
You don't need a unique universal naming space.
Or all states of the thing. Like a different, when you have it in a different context, and like a hammer could be called a product. In one place, it could be called a weapon. In another, like you can name it so long as it's unambiguous.
You're right. It is definitely preferable to have a unique naming space, but it's not necessary. Yeah.
Well, particularly when, the thing that distinguishes an NFA and a wish is its usage. Right? Like a forward NFA versus a wish, it's sort of like a wish is wishes is what I'd say those NFAs were that you made previously.
No, I disagree with that because you were right. And sorry, I said those three magic words to you. You were right. Yesterday, as I went a deep dive into something I think it's probably fading into my memory now, but the command and control structure of armed forces is essentially what we're looking for in terms of wishes. It's like, we need to achieve this. Your operating boundaries are this. Inside of that, you have complete control. Outside of that, you need to ask for permission. That's what we
want. That's what we want.
And I remember actually, it was down in Monaco. I think I was going through command and control with you for the first time, perhaps. Maybe that's not the first time. And you were going, "Oh, that's brilliant," and I've forgotten actually that. So yesterday's like, fuck yes, right.
So that funding document is like way more in line with what I'm searching for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It allows
and
freedom of
I like
movement.
the usage of the should, must,
Could
must
and must
not.
not. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's the boundaries. That's the boundaries. That's
yeah,
basically your
yeah,
rules of engagement.
yeah. And so what you've described there is much more narrow than build the dream catcher. And it's much more, it allows more freedom of solution, but it still doesn't offer any self-proving tests.
The only self-proving test was that we're using the Dreamcatcher methodology to
Yeah,
raise the Dreamcatcher funding.
yeah. And perhaps I think we need to find a way to hoist that up more to make that more prominent, because it's the answer of what does it do and also how do I get money back from it. It answers those two things simultaneously.
That was the hardest part, and I was actually after I put in the funding commit. I was thinking, how are we gonna do this for the rest of them, and having that self hoisting thing for, for example, the stuff you're doing. It's actually you'd end up with a dozen words maybe, but those dozen words it would be a bastard to actually find.
Yeah, it's hard to define it, but once you get it, it's like extraordinarily information dense.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, so the way I started thinking about it after yesterday's call was that what is the Dreamcatcher? It's a machine. What does it produce? It produces sustainable software projects. And so if you think about it as the only thing that really confuses us is because it's like a meta factory. Like it's the factory that makes the factories. But if you just sort of shunt everything down one and just ignore the factories that the Dreamcatcher produces and just think of it like a single factory making widgets, just so happens that the widgets are themselves factories, but that's very much by the by. Then you can start to say, well, how do we know the machine works? Well, when it makes a widget. How do we know they're the right widget? Well, the widgets need to assemble or have this relationship between them. And so the factory, a correctly functioning factory that can make widgets that connect together in the right way, is vastly more narrow than just a factory that makes widgets and then the widgets don't talk to each other.
yes, yes. But quick question. What do you mean by sustainable? About 90 seconds ago.
Sustainable means that, so unsustainable would be like Ethereum, because what keeps paying for Ethereum to go on?
Right. Okay. So in my parlance, I call that self-stoking. A self-stoking cycle in an engine is one that the energy that the engine produces actually is used in the next cycle. So it's a self-stoking cycle. The ultimate version is obviously an engine that goes on forever without any.
And there's something in there about the fact that if it was just open loop, it's way easier to meet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But making a single widget that is a self-sustaining software project, that alone is hard. And then to make a cluster of widgets that are interdependent and have reusability between them, that's, like we start to get to the point where the number of systems that could satisfy those simple constraints is pretty much one.
Yeah.
Right.
However,
and so,
if we found two, that'd be a fucking discovery, wouldn't it?
It's super fucking interesting, right?
Yeah.
But my point being that if we describe a scenario like that and treat the Dreamcatcher as a widget making machine and just sort of ignore for the moment what the widgets are and talk about what they need to do, then it sort of becomes obvious that you need to specify the Dreamcatcher in terms of its outputs.
Yes, absolutely agree. In fact, I've got this written
Okay.
down on my notepad here.
Right, and outputs is much more like intent, like what you've put in the funding document, right? It's closer to intent.
Assets are realized intent.
Yeah, but when I look at the dictionary is one attempt at building a machine that can satisfy whatever that top level intent is.
Yes, and
that's what the dictionary is. The dictionary is not like the dictionary was bleeding into the NFAs when actually the dictionary is one worker's attempt. Like that's you, me, and lately Troy trying to make one attempt at solving the top level strategic intent.
I think we're finally converging on this. So just on my notes here, when I was going through it, it's like, okay, so I've named that that project as the launch project. It's like, well, what you were launching. You could launch a Falcon 9 or a cat. It's like, well, why are you launching a cat, or why are you launching a Falcon 9? What are you trying to do? Rolling back from that is actually now we've got the forward NFA way of doing that. What we should be doing is not looking at the launch, because the launch is actually quite a small parochial thing that who cares really. Once it's launched, it's disposable. But the very original intent, when we start to talk, God knows how many years ago, about this, we should put that into the same format of the NFA that we've got. So what's, the I've written some notes here for specifically this thing. It's like you start with why. Why does this need to exist? Then you move to the problem. What problem we're trying to solve. Then you look to the boundaries and so on and so on. I've not finished the notes, but I'll send them over when I do. But putting that into that format of the NFA, which I think we're starting to get just a glimmer of how to think clearly about this. If we were to go back and actually say, what the fuck have we spent the last God knows how many years of our lives doing? What was the, why? Why is this necessary? Why is the universe better off with this or not? And then moving from the why, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And then what are the constraints? And the constraints are really the thing that defines the Dreamcatcher. You could define the Dreamcatcher in terms of those four, what it must do, should do, could do, and must not. And you could do it actually quite parsimoniously. You could probably do it in, well, I hesitate with a single page because that's a bit trite, and but you could do it in a small number of words, I think. Okay. Right back at the top.
So you're gonna do that?
It's gonna be a big one, but yeah. I'm going to give that the first raggy-arsed, hairy-arsed Scottish attempt at it, and then I'll need, your input and so on, but I'll give that.
I think you're right, and I think it's... How about we make the constraint that it has to be one page?
That is going to be an excellent discipline.
I'll tell you why, because if we look at what we've been doing for the past X number of years, the trail is littered with rather long documents.
we could put them into a big volume and it'll be fucking sitting on their shelf and nobody would read.
It would be one of the most irritating books on earth to read, because you'd be like, it's like a chapter that had the pages ripped out and you're like, where's the fucking rest of it? So my point is, like, pick a word count that's a reasonable sort of like what a page should have, and then like if you go over the word count you have to kill it.
Yeah, and word count is like a proxy for attention span, right? So if we say if someone is hooked at the first line, they'll probably spend 10 minutes max on it. If we don't explain it in 10 minutes max in that format, that's the important thing. In that format, without specifying our solution, just what we're trying to do
Yeah, it's yeah. So if you have a crack at that, it also makes it easy for me to review it because I can easily read a page.
Yeah.
I can't read, um, 10 pages of half finished things. Like you can't you can't fill a page and it be half finished. Like the page restriction gets rid of the half finishedness too because it compresses everything down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. What do and this is a big one, but it's much easier to edit than to write. So I'll put up
yeah,
I'll put up something that's obviously going to be wrong, and well, it's not going to be wrong. Probably it's going to be misworded and have a
don't worry about
mismatch.
it. I mean, like it's even if we both reach agreement, it still might not be right.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what we've got right now is, and I'm pretty sure you agree with me. What we got now is much closer to what it should be than what it was before.
Yes. Yes, for sure, for sure. And that format, I'm very happy with. That might be selection bias because essentially that's the format I was taught in Dartmouth.
If it works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, fuck,
Yeah.
any format is better than no format.
Yeah.
So, and that's a good one.
Yeah. But yeah, that will mean that what I can't do yet then, because remembering our previous goal was to find out what we're asking for potential investors, how much we're asking, and what they're getting for it. So if I do that, that would support it for sure. But it's not breaking down, those other areas. I think that's the right approach. But just to make sure you're okay with that. So, for example, the next thing possibly we could do is to look at the NFA for the software or the product or the marketing or the initial block producer or the arbiter.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
fit
yeah,
these
right.
together.
Like there are things forming that are distinct and can be specified independently. Like you would know if the blockchain turned up, right? You'd know. You'd be like, oh, that looks like the piece. And then, you'd know if there was a commercial block producer on the scene that had near unlimited capacity for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
So these components we know about. We know that they can be spec'd, and we should spec them in this pure problem format
Yep.
so that we can raise for them.
Yeah. 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 I agree. What I was just saying is to go back right to the Genesis NFA, as it were. So what we're talking about is probably going to be quite a lot of cycles between you and me, quite a lot of hours.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, look, nothing ever has been nice and quick and smooth. So,
Yeah.
the faster we get on it, the better, and the more loops we can do, the better.
Yeah.
So I can make sure that if you're doing that format, I can make sure that I review it and comment on it every single day. If you can do the same, then we can actually move forwards at a reasonable pace.
Are
This
you?
is definitely the thing to push on.
Yeah. Are you reasonably comfortable with the actual format, the headers and so on? So it starts with strategic intent and then tactical intent, and then that's broken down, and then the stage gates are linked back to the tactical intent. But at no point do you specify what. It's you start with why, you start, then you move to the problem, and then here's what our tactics are to solve that problem. But at no point do you actually
I
say
like
what it is.
it. I like it. I like it better than anything else we've ever seen. I have a sense that it's not perfect, but I for sure can't spot what the problem is.
Oh.
It is worlds better than what we had yesterday.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I entirely agree. Yesterday was
Is there
project management.
is there a name for that format?
Well, in my world, this is just the standard command and control format. For just to remind you, and for the stream as well. So, command and control format is you make sure that if anyone's doing a job or tries to achieve something, they know what they're to up. So, their boss's boss is trying to achieve. That's strategic intent. Then you're trying to figure out what your boss is trying to achieve, which is the tactical intent. And then you look at, okay, so how how do we reach that tactical intent that doesn't break the strategic intent? And so that gives you quite a lot of leeway in order to decide exactly what you're going to do, knowing that you're still going to be aligned. So nobody's telling you what to do.
But it's not really command and control. Sounds like project management. It's more like network. It's the network thing.
The name is shit, and it goes back 150 years. Is not a great name, but essentially what it is.
No, it's not. You told me that it started from the book Achtung Panzer.
No, goes back to Karl von Clausewitz. He was the first one to talk about that. Achtung Panzer was the first one to codify it into a large memory. Yeah.
Okay, all right, but it's that network-based, the freedom to move is what we're talking about.
Right.
Trying to get at, right?
Yeah.
Like independent thought, independent motion.
Right.
Some guardrails so you don't fucking kill the other guys.
Exactly.
But
inside of this box, you can do whatever you want, so long as it doesn't break the 1-up intent and the 2-up intent. And even if it does, you're still free to do that, but you have to like bump it up and say, "I just spotted something."
So we're still missing the 1 level up intent. We've got, I mean, what you've started there is a great starting point for the funding. But there's a thing above that.
That's right. That's right. So the thing above that, previously you had that as the project initial funding, but actually that's not the. I mean, there's one level above that as a grand strategy. So if we say that the Dreamcatcher NFA is the grand strategy, we put it into the same format. What we're trying to solve? Why is the world broken at the moment?
Yeah. So can we? So when I look at that funding.md, and I look at the meat that's in that, or even just the raw word count, it either equals or surpasses the word count of all the other NFAs in there. So can we strip all those ones out and dump them either into that spreadsheet that we were using like a project plan, or move them somewhere else? Because those are really our attempt to solve the problem.
Yeah, everything else inside of that area is deprecated. And
okay, so can we either delete it or move it or do something with it so that we can focus attention on these feel like the NFAs. They're like strategic intent NFAs.
I'll do that. That's just an admin task. I'll do that. Yeah.
There should be less than 12.
Yes. That seems.
And there is the top one. There's a highest one, and then there's a bunch of lower downs, and then there might be 1 or 2 at a third level down below that, maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So so today what I'll do is I'll do the first hairy arsed, the primal NFA, the grand strategy one.
If you keep doing that and then we bounce them back and forwards every day, we will get this thing.
Yeah. And also I'll tidy up everything away because that's all deprecated. I put a note on Discord, but I'll get it out so nobody's wasting time reading stuff that is just wrong. Although the information inside of it, the breakdown is like notes, is at best a notepad.
It's best to remove it, honestly, because the tone is so different in this new one. It's a completely different way of expressing what we want.
What would be good? So we've got that. So I'll do that. So I'll strip out admin-wise everything else, and then I'll start on this the grand strategy Dreamcatcher NFA. It would be good also to invite the other guys to comment inside of Git on that funding NFA to see how these things evolve, because it wasn't. What I tried to do is put one thing in each.
Sure, and everyone's always welcome to do so, but I want to even know. I want to know what we want to say first before. We don't even have a clear opinion on what we want it to be. let alone it being picked at by anyone else, right? Like we are barely fucking off the beach here.
Yeah. I was thinking more of the mechanism and seeing that, but okay, that can wait. That's fine. That's not a problem. Okay.
I mean, what are you going to do? Like, hey, how's this?
Well,
what if it's not good?
I'm just
right? What if it's not good? What then?
I'm
like, where are you going to go? Where are your other options? Like, look at how much struggle it took us to even get here. Like, I don't have a backup plan. This is it.
I don't have a backup plan either. Well,
no,
death, I think, probably is the backup plan. There's nothing else. So
this format, this is the best format that I've seen, and it's not incrementally better. It's like fundamentally better, and I cannot for the life of me think of any alternative to this format. Let's actually just use it instead of sitting there wondering if it's the best one. It's better. Who cares if it's best?
Fine. Good. All right. Okay. So, all right, I need to summarize the intent of the Dreamcatcher in a 10-minute cognitive window. Or maybe probably not even 10 minutes, I don't know.
See how you go. I mean, whatever it is, it needs to be a box.
Yeah.
If you go over the box, you need to be deleting.
Yeah.
It might be 2 pages, right? But it cannot be an English document because that's how we'll die.
Yeah. All right. Okay. You're on tomorrow. This is the sort of thing that is useful in rapid iterations.
I can much easier to look at a document and make changes to it than I can guarantee you that I can be on a particular time. Well, I can guarantee you that I can look at the document.
That's good enough. That's absolutely good enough. Okay. What we'll do is spend today, realistically, with everything else, I've probably got 5 hours of actual focused work on this. So I'm going to put 5 hours into that.
Okay.
And most of it, rather than trawl back, because I'm autistic, the thing I really want to do is to go back through our entire backlog and make sure I capture everything. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it from memory. So I'm not going to refer to any previous stuff.
Yeah, just...
And then,
Your memory is great, and it's just like a filter for importance. Okay, if you forgot it, probably now's a good time to let it die.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I explain... You know what I think you should do?
Mm-hmm.
Is you should get a desk in just temporarily in a co-working space because everyone fucking asks, hey, what are you doing? Right? And it's like you get 10 pitch tests in a week.
I see the value of it. But honestly, I'd rather have root canal surgery than have a bunch of people, interrupting thought processes.
Yeah, okay. Well, what I really meant or was trying to get at was that I've been explaining what we've been up to probably easily 10 times now, and it's super easy to describe in terms of algorithmic cap table. Super easy.
Interesting. Is that the thing that clicks with them?
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been pushing. It's the thing that I find easiest to explain. It's the thing, if I had to pick one thing about the Dreamcatcher, it would be fairness of upside.
Interesting.
Of all the things. And it's a very, very pertinent problem. You will not find a single knowledge worker that hasn't been diddled when it came to a cap table.
Fucking hell, you and I have been screwed so often it's just not funny anymore.
It's basically, this is life, right? Like, it's that bad.
That's an interesting one to lead on. That's
really nice. And I've been leading on it every time, and every time a coconut.
Huh.
Right? I'm like, you do your work, it turns it into an NFT, the cap table's calculated based on what lines of code were executed in the program. Sounds good.
Everyone's happy. and nobody gets screwed. That's
Even if someone does get screwed, and they for sure will, at least it's predictable and it's not personal.
Well, yeah, actually, no. You may well still get screwed, but you don't get screwed ahead of time because you didn't have the same knowledge. There's the knowledge gradient that I banged on about 5.5 months ago.
Yeah, you don't get screwed for your lack of clairvoyance.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no benefit to a knowledge gradient. So you can still get screwed. However, at least you know that it's not because when you turned up to the game, you were never going to win. Because someone else's knowledge gradient was bigger than yours. Or the gradient.
Yeah, but anyway, I feel like I can pitch this thing real quick now. And it's based on, it's all hinging around that algorithmic cap table.
Right. Okay.
Honestly, all the other features kind of drop off in comparison to that one, I think.
Well, that's a great hook for what I was about to attempt then. So if I'm doing the kind of the primal NFA, if that's the statement of the problem, then the rest should fall out. We'll see.
And I believe that is the statement of the problem, because we're saying that it doesn't actually need a blockchain. We're just saying that it needs a system that guarantees you that everyone can trust that you're not going to get screwed for upside.
You could run
and
it
that
with
you can.
Yeah, it doesn't need a blockchain.
You can recombine your works. You can recombine your works without getting screwed for upside by the composer.
Yeah.
Too.
It just needs an oracle.
So
it requires an oracle that everyone buys into.
Or an oracle-like machine.
Yeah.
And all these other features are just, they don't really count in comparison to that one. Like, that's the intent, that thing.
Good. That's useful. Okay.
And how would we know that we built the machine when that intent is met? When it's met for an individual project, and that's what I mean by sustainable, and when it's met by multiple projects being composed into other projects as well.
Right.
That's real simple, man. That's a simple way to explain it, and to me, that's the primary feature.
So those are the stage gates. That's the tests and the tactical intent. I can see coming already.
And do not be afraid to specify something like find a customer that has X revenue to build a sustainable software system for. Like, that's totally okay as a test.
Good. Okay, that's enough for me to work on. I'm happy with that.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. That's really, really fucking helpful, actually. I could probably get something useful for tomorrow morning.
Cool.
Whether you're on or not, it doesn't matter. I'm around.
Whenever you commit, I'll see it, and I'll guarantee you that I'll read it, and I'll comment on it.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Right, my head's full of that. Right,
Sweet.
I'm going to start working on it. That was really fucking useful. That was a powerful conversation there.
Cool.
That was good.
Okay, good luck.
All right.
I'll leave